Hi, so I'm using this video to record my understanding and reflections on Universal Design for Learning. Prior to this course in this domain, I'd never even heard of it. It first came to my attention when I watched the TED Talk by Dr. Jan Wilson, which was linked in our course reading. And Jan talked about the social model of disability and about how the best tool that she'd seen for making it a reality in education was the Universal Design for Learning. She states that UDL is about using teaching materials and methods that reduce barriers. And she also described all the other positive spin-offs that kind of teaching and learning method has. The fact that all students are benefited by it, not just students with disabilities. That TED Talk I found really interesting, and I really kind of latched onto the idea of UDL because it seemed to be something practical that I could actually hold on to and take away from this course, which is what I'm wanting. So then I went on and researched more into UDL. I found a few really good in-depth websites with heaps of information. One of these, the first ones I found, was the National Centre on Universal Design for Learning, and it has links to lots of different examples of how to use Universal Design for Learning, and a huge amount of resources that you can use. So ways to change your text into audio and different languages and sign language, and though that's just the tip of the iceberg, those were just a few that I clicked on. Another website I found was Maryland Learning Links, and that was it had lots of really good examples of how to use UDL in the classroom. It had some case studies and videos. It was quite user-friendly, and I had a good look around there, so that's another one that I'm going to go back to when I adapt my own lesson plan. And I also had a look at CAST, which is the organisation that first adapted Universal Design as it was used in architecture, and adapted it for learning and to how it is now used in education. So I found out on CAST a bit more about how UDL was born and the fact that it was based on lots of research done around the brain and about how the brain works, which made me, realise how credible it is, which if I didn't know that already, the fact that it's on our course, part of our course reading, but it was just good to show me again that it is something that really is around for a reason. That I've also found on CAST some online teaching modules, which I love the idea of, but they are expensive. And I haven't found anything like that in New Zealand yet. Something that I could work my way through. So anyway, from all of these websites that I looked at, they all refer to the 3 guidelines of Universal Design for Learning. And the guidelines are providing multiple means of representation. So that's meaning, presenting the material that you're wanting children to engage with in a variety of ways. So not just text. You might have audio, you might have video, drama, song. I mean, those are just a few, but having a whole lot of ways of representing that information. The second guideline is providing multiple means of action and expression. So offering a variety of ways for children to learn and to display their knowledge, not just written but also spoken, or acting something out, doing it physically, musically, using technology. And again, those are just a few that I've seen and thought of, and I'm sure I'll find many more as I keep looking into it. And the third guideline is to provide multiple means of engagement. And just some of the ways of engaging students are using collaboration and group work, as well as options for individual work, and also making what you're learning applicable to real life situations. So I also found on the National Centre for Universal Design for Learning website a really interesting study that they had done with a group of teachers, and it was introducing them to the idea of UDL and then getting them to perform what they knew on a topic through different mediums that were prescribed. So they had to tell the person running this experiment what they were strong in, and there were a group who were strong in writing or written word and some who were strong artistically, and the group who were strong with writing were made to, I think they had to learn some basic information, but then they had to share what they had learned through drawing or through art, which is the medium they weren't so comfortable with, and the artistic group had to share what they had learnt through the written word. And the findings were just so interesting, and they make a lot of sense. But these groups, when they were having to display their knowledge in a medium that they weren't so comfortable with and weren't so skilled in, they had a much poorer performance, and there was much less time on task. They were a lot less engaged. They then were able to do the same task through the medium that they preferred, and the difference in the quality of their work was quite huge, as well as the time spent on task, and they all acknowledged that themselves. And that was just a really basic way to illustrate to those teachers, and to me reading it, how much it makes a difference when you can use your strengths to learn and to show your learning. And it shows so clearly how unfair we are in asking children in the classrooms to display all their knowledge in one way, and how can we ever gain an accurate idea of their real ability and knowledge when we restrict learning like that. But it's happening all the time. So the next thing I found in my research was a page on the Harvard website, which was when I was looking into if you could you take courses on Universal Design for Learning online. And Harvard actually has courses as a part of their curriculum. They have week-long intensive programs specifically on UDL and how to implement it in the classroom, and it's run for educators. And it made me wish that there was an option like this in Christchurch or New Zealand. And it also made me feel really excited, like I was part of this kind of cutting-edge technique, I suppose, in teaching, or at least that I'm privy to it now. So that was cool to see that. In saying all of that, and all the positives and benefits I can see around UDL, it's not something that I sort of take lightly, because it is something, if you were to implement this and change your teaching according to these guidelines, it's huge. You're restructuring your entire method of teaching. You're changing the thinking around the way you teach, and that's a real process. It's not something that's just going to happen in a few weeks. So that's a big barrier, and it's something that I'm trying to get my head around, how I will do that realistically and do a good job of it. I'm just going to have to start small, but keeping in mind that that's the way that I want my teaching to go. The other thing I thought about was when I'm back in the classroom, because I'm not in the classroom now, if I did eventually get to the point where I felt like I really was using UDL effectively, or to the standard that I wanted to, there would be barriers if the other teachers within your syndicate, or if you're team teaching within your class, weren't on board with that, and that's tricky too. But I suppose as long as you felt passionate about it, and if you could see the results, then other teachers would come on board as well. The only other thing that I have questions about with UDL, and I haven't found any information on yet, is the use of UDL with new entrants and young, 5, 6, 7-year-olds, because that was the area where I primarily taught when I was in the classroom. I see how UDL is so applicable and could be so beneficial to children once they have a mastery of things like reading, writing, and the basics of maths. But I do think it would be difficult to implement UDL across the board with the likes of new entrants, because with something like learning to write and learning to read, I don't really see the other mediums that you can teach that through. For example, writing, the end product is you want them to be able to write. I understand that the use of technology, like typing on a computer, or for children who aren't able to hold a pencil, that's a different matter. But the actual practice of becoming fluent in writing surely is something that we do still want to have all of our children who can possibly do this to master, and the same with reading. But something to think about, and perhaps with those new entrant classes, all of your topic studies would be very strongly UDL, and then those core subjects would be UDL in some aspects and slightly more prescriptive in others. But I may even ask about that on the forum to see if anybody has advice. But that's the basis of, or the basics, I guess, of what I've learned about UDL so far. I also have made a presentation under my next goal, which is comparing UDL to multiple learning theory. So there's a wee bit more information on there as well. But thanks for listening, and see you later.